When you hear people talk about the first 3 or 4 big purchases you should get when you're starting out in woodworking, you're gonna get lots of differing opinions. In my case, it's table saw, bandsaw, drill press. And I know the drill press doesn't sound that exciting, but the drill press can be used to do all kinds of things well beyond just drilling holes. And in today's video, we're gonna build a sharpening system that's powered by a drill press. Now this sharpening system can be used to do planer blades, chisels, even knives. Now I didn't think of this build. This is a build I saw years and years ago in a magazine called Shop Notes. I don't know what issue it was, but it was definitely a really cool build, and we're gonna recreate that today.
And we're gonna walk you through it step by step.
So we're gonna use some scrap plywood for this project. We have some plywood that has a laminate we glue on it for other projects laying around, and we're gonna use that. The laminate isn't necessary, it's just what we've got. So the body of this can be made out of plywood. Now for the top of it where the sanding part goes, you're gonna wanna use MDF or something really flat. We have some scrap MDF around we're gonna use for this as well. So this is the hardware minus the screws that we're gonna need for today's project. We've got 2 1/4 bolts, 2.5 inches long with nuts on them. We'll use those nuts later to make some knobs for tightening. We have a 3/8 carriage bolt that's 4 inches long with nut. We've got a piece of 1/4 inch rod, 2 pieces of 1/2 inch rod. The lengths aren't important yet. We'll talk about finished lengths in the video. 2 1/2 inch stock collars, 5 1/2 inch splaned bronze bushings, 2 1/2 inch ID pulleys, and a V-groove belt. Now your belt's gonna depend on the pulleys that you can find. This is just what we could find at our local store. We have a 3 inch and a 2.5 inch. Now these are gonna determine how big the box is. So next up, we need to build the box. To determine how long our box is, we're simply gonna put our pulleys into our belts and stretch them out and see what wedge or what we come up with.
10.5.
All right, so we know we've got 10.5 center to center when this is tensioned. So we need 6 inches on one side, which is where the sanding discs are gonna go, and about 4 inches on the opposite side where our tensioning system is gonna go. If we had 10.5 to let's say 11 inches just for a little bit of extra safe, we've got 21.5. So now we know how long the box has to be. Now we're putting 8-inch discs on top of this, and we need about 1 inch on either side of it just for a little bit of wiggle room. So now we know how deep it needs to be. So it's 21.5 by 10-inch box. Now that we've got our box made, I'm gonna measure the depth of it and go right to center. So 1/2 of 10 is 5 inches. I'm gonna come over 6 inches from the side. That's gonna be our disc side, or where the sanding happens. From that 6-inch mark, I'm gonna measure over 10.5 inches. And then I'm gonna go back 1/2 inch and forward 1/2 inch. And I'm gonna give myself 2 marks there. And I'm gonna drill 2 holes there and then connect them so I have an elongated slot. Now once we have that done, we can start talking about how tall it needs to be. So you see these lips I cut into the bottom of the top. Those are there for a very specific reason. They help me mount the side panels, and they give me a measurement right now, so I know exactly how wide the C carriage that goes in here has to be. Now that C carriage is gonna hold my pulley and my bearings and my stop block, and that's gonna be what moves back and forth to put tension on the system. Now while I was cutting these, I made 2 sets. One is going to capture this tensioner that's going to slide back and forth. This set is going to hold the rod that comes up through the top and holds the discs in place for the sharpening system. Now all I need to do is measure up to the top of this, and that's going to give me my side height. Now I'm going to leave just a little bit of wiggle room so this doesn't have too much friction when it's sliding back and forth. Before I put this all together, I need to create some flat spots for the set screws to ride on. So I've removed the set screws from both the stop collar and the pulley. And I'm just going to use my little long nose marker here to mark some positions. Now I can pull that apart, grind a little flat spot, and we'll be set to go to put this all together. before this all goes together, I need to put the 3/8 carriage bolt in here. Now this is going to be what tensions the whole thing. Now we can put our pulley system in and screw this carriage together. And don't forget your belt unless you want to take it back apart again. So I drilled a hole in the side piece, that'll go through there, and there'll be a knob on the back of here that tensions this down. Oh, knobs. We need to make knobs. All right, so we're gonna pause here and make the knobs that we need for this project. The reason we're pausing here is because we're pouring these with a 2-part epoxy. Now we make and sell these HDPE knob forms on our website for different jigs and fixturing. And we need to make 2 different kinds of knobs. We need to make a threaded knob, and then we need to make a nut knob, or a bolt knob and a nut knob, something. So the nut goes on the inside of this particular knob, and then we need bolts for these ones. Kind of like this, only longer. So Megan's gonna show you the products that we use in our knob forms that gave us the best results.
We're using high performance resin. It's the ratio of 2 to 1. It's 2 parts resin, 1 part slow hardener.
Now that Maggie's poured our knobs and they're curing, I started putting the side panels on and realized I made a mistake. I cut my sides just a wee too short, like 3/4 inches too short. So not a big deal. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a new back piece and use these because I've already pre-drilled the holes for these positions that hold the other pulley system that we mount the sanding or the sharpening discs and stuff to. So now that we have our slidey tensioner thingamabob done, that's a technical term, it's time to jump over here. Now we're basically doing the exact same thing, except for it's not gonna move. So we've got a couple of spacers that go into the body of this, the same hardware that keeps everything nice and level. The only thing I have to be careful about is the height of the rod coming through. I need to be a little under 1.5 inches, so I'm gonna lift up this rod just a smidge and go ahead and put a mark there. I also need a 1/4 inch rod running through this for the discs to sit over the top of, and that's what's gonna make sure that when this is turning, the discs are turning. So that's gonna be about 1/8 inch high. So if I put it exactly flush with this, that'll lift it up 1/2, so 1/16 of an inch, and that will give me everything I need on all my measurements to make sure this rod's lined up. Now on this one, we've left it about 4 inches tall, and the drill press will attach here, and the pulley system will turn this, and then we'll be able to control the revolutions per minute because the drill presses are variable speed. Whether you have a dial one or belt system, you can get them really low speeds, which makes it ideal for running a sharpening system. Okay, let's talk more work. So off camera, I made these discs. Got a couple different kinds here. I've got this bottom one with a slot in it, 1/2 inch hole in the center, and a place for a 1/4 inch pin. Now that's gonna slide right over the top of this, and that rod will slide right in here, which means when this is turning, the whole thing turns. That's what makes it all work. So these other discs are gonna sit right on top of here, and to index them, there is a 1/4 inch pin that goes in there, and on the back there's a 1/4 inch hole. So when that sits over the top of the rod, that pin sits in the hole, and we're putting a lot of pressure on, it'll keep spinning. I'm gonna go ahead and super glue this in, then we'll put some scary sharp sandpaper on these, build our mounting system, and we're ready to sharpen. All right, now that we've got it together, let's go see if it'll work. Maggie, grab the discs to the drill press. Okay, so the chisel needs to ride along this bar. And to do that, I just got 2 pieces of Baltic birch. I put a little bit of anti-clank cork rubber on one, and then I just threaded the wood. So those go right in there. These are the knobs we made earlier. Now when I want to set my chisel, I have 2 marks here. Now I've already pre-marked these. One is for the 30-degree angle and the other one is for the 25-degree angle. So all I have to do is slide my chisel in there, make sure that is tight up against here and these are tight up against there. That makes my chisel square. And I'm ready to sharpen. All right, so I have this thing set up for perfect square, and if you look right here at the chisel, this is fairly drastic. This is the 30-degree beveled edge, so typically that wouldn't be that big on a chisel. Here's the 25-degree seat, and this is your chisel edge. Now, what happens here is because the disc is moving faster in the center than it is on the outside, you're getting a little bit more material removal here. So what you need to do is just ever so slightly skew the chisel, and you can actually set that up in your stop block after you figure out what's going to give you that perfect parallel edge across there. So you can see here that my skew is a little bit too much, so all I need to do is bring that back slightly, and then I'll get that nice parallel line. And once I have that, I can come back over and set my stop block up for that position, so I get that position every time. Now, before I grind my whole chisel face down to 30 degrees, I'm going to stop there, but you can see how that's starting to parallel out. So I've got my angle set. I know which angle I like now. I'm going to change over to the next grit and go ahead and sharpen that down. So we've sharpened down to 8,000 grit and we've stropped it. Let's give it a little test here on some maple. And after all that, just like butter.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching.
We had a lot of fun with this project and it turned out really, really well. We're really excited about using it in the shop. In fact, we have some plans to make another version that doesn't require the drill press. It looks a lot like this, but that's another video. I want to say a big thank you to Taylor Toolworks and to Total Boat for sending us the Scary Sharp sandpaper and the epoxy to use in today's video. Really appreciate you guys, companies that are really into supporting this community, which means a lot. Now, you guys saw me only sharpen up to 8,000, and I typically don't go beyond that, but the Scary Sharp system goes up to, I believe, 60,000 grit. So you could get carried away if you really wanted to. Links for everything in this video will be in the description box below, minus the hardware. You'll have to find that at your local hardware store. Again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll
See you in the next video.
see you in the next video.